Buenos días, buenas tardes o buenas noches. Saludos desde Cuba. Bienvenido a la clase número 16 en tu canal Learn Spanish Easy and Fast. Hoy tendremos una clase muy importante. Aprenderemos a conjugar los verbos en español en el tiempo presente. No te pierdas esta clase, está muy buena. Let's start. Comencemos. Okay guys, let's begin. In this lesson we are going to answer this question. How to conjugate verbs in Spanish? ¿Cómo conjugar los verbos en español? And to start with this, you have to know that the conjugation in Spanish is a little more difficult than the conjugation in English. In English, if I look for a verb in the dictionary, for example, I don't know, the verb speak, I conjugate it in the present tense is very easy because the only thing I have to do is put the personal pronoun before the verb, and that's it. I say I speak, you speak, she speaks, he speaks. I don't have to teach English to you, but in Spanish it's a little more difficult, right? Because in Spanish we have three different endings for the verbs, for the infinitives in Spanish. And the infinitives are the verbs in their natural form, in their pure form. Okay, when you look the verb in the dictionary, the verb that is going to appear is the infinitive of the verb. And that infinitive you have to conjugate it. And today you are going to learn how to conjugate the verbs, the regular verbs in Spanish in the present tense, okay, which is the most important tense in Spanish, okay. And the first possible ending for the verb is the ending AR, okay, like for example in the word hablar, okay, it's like speak or talk, okay. The second ending for a verb in Spanish is the ending ER, okay, so an example is comer, to eat, all right, or eat, comer. And the third one, the ending IR, okay, so for example the verb vivir, all right, to live, vivir, all right. Okay guys, let's move on. Okay, when we conjugate a verb in Spanish, we first need to identify who's performing the action, okay? And the person that is performing the action, it is the subject of the action, okay? The subject of the action can be, for example, a name, the name of a person's name. For example, I don't know, Maria, Jose, Eduardo, Ernesto, Daniel, okay, any person. And it can also be, I don't know, my dog, so mi perro, mi gato, all right? So the person or the animal or the object that is performing the action, okay? But also you can replace those names by personal pronouns. In previous lessons, we have already learned the personal pronouns, but anyway, let's begin this class again with the personal pronouns, okay? And we have yo, that is translated as I, tú, that is translated as you, usted, that is also translated as you in English, but remember that is when I am talking to a person, directly to a person, I want to be very formal with this person. I also have the personal pronoun él, that is translated as he in English, ella, that is translated as she in English, nosotros, that is translated as we in English. Remember that I use nosotros when I am included in a group and the group is only composed by men, or the group is mixed, composed by men and by women, all right? And if the group is only composed by women and I am a woman and I am included in that group, remember that I say nosotras, all right? We, nosotras. Okay, I also, if I am talking to a group directly, remember that I use the personal pronoun ustedes, okay? And in this case, it doesn't matter if I want to address this group in a very formal or informal way. Either way, I use the personal pronoun ustedes, all right? I also have ellos, okay, to talk about they, okay, but in this case, the group is only composed by men or composed by men and by women, okay? But if the group is only composed by women and I want to translate they, okay, I say ellas, okay, ellas, all right, guys? Okay, having remembered this, let's move on. Okay, to conjugate an infinitive, you need to remove the final two letters and add the appropriate ending. To add the appropriate ending, you need to be sure in which tense you want to speak. Today, we will study el tiempo presente, the most important one. So that is the present tense, okay? It's also important, you know, that there are verbs which are irregular and don't follow a specific rule. Luckily for us, most of the verbs are regular in Spanish. Okay, so let's start with the first ending, the ending AR. Okay, so we have verbos regulares en el tiempo presente, regular verbs in the present tense. Okay, so for example, like we said before, the verb hablar. Okay, here you can notice that the two last letters of this infinitive of this verb are the letters AR. Okay. And let's see how we conjugate these verbs. And here we have a table, and in the first column we have the subjects, okay? So for example, yo, tú, usted, él, ella, nosotros, nosotras, ustedes, ellos, ellas, okay? So remember that, like I have told you before, when you are speaking Spanish, you don't necessarily have to say the subject. I mean, you don't have to say necessarily the personal pronoun unless you want to be very specific. Remember that I say, for example, yo hablo, if I want to be very specific, or I can also say hablo, okay? I can say, for example, yo hablo con mi hermana todos los días, or I can say hablo con mi hermana todos los días, and it's exactly the same, okay? I can omit the personal pronoun if I don't consider that it's necessary to be so specific, okay? Having said that, in this case, the first conjugation for the personal pronoun yo is the letter O, okay? So I maintain the same verb, the same infinitive, but I remove the two last letters of the verb. And instead of those two last letters, I add the letter O, right? So I say hablo, all right? Or if I want to be very specific, yo hablo, all right? For the second one, okay, for the second personal pronoun, so the personal pronoun tú, I say tú hablas, all right? So again, I remove the two last letters, the ER, and I write AS. So I say tú hablas, all right? Like I have told you in previous lessons, remember that usted, él, and ella, okay, these three personal pronouns, they share the same conjugation in Spanish. So in this case, I remove the two last letters, okay, the letters AR, and I write the letter A at the end of the verb. So I say usted habla, or I say él habla, or I say ella habla, right? In the case of nosotros or nosotras, okay, the same. I remove the two last letters, and instead of AR, I write AMOS. So I say nosotros hablamos or nosotras hablamos. Or if I don't want to be very specific, I can say hablamos, and that's it, okay? Similar thing happens with the personal pronoun ustedes, okay? So again, I remove the two last letters, and instead of the letters AR, I write AN. So I say, ustedes hablan. Ustedes hablan, all right? And the same with ellos and ellas. It happens the same. I say, ellos hablan or ellas hablan, okay? Again, we have said in previous lessons that in the case of ustedes, ellos, and ellas, they also share the same conjugation in Spanish, all right? Other examples that we have with the ending AR, that is the first group in Spanish of the infinitives, are the verb escuchar, escuchar, that is like to listen, right? Estudiar, to study, estudiar, and also trabajar, to work, trabajar. Okay, the same with escuchar, for example. I remove these two letters that you see here in red, okay, with the color red, and you write O. So you say, yo escucho, or just escucho, right? Yo escucho. Tú escuchas. Usted escucha. Él escucha. Ella escucha. Nosotros escuchamos. Or nosotras escuchamos. Ustedes escuchan. Ellos escuchan. Ellas escuchan. Okay? The same with estudiar. It happens exactly the same. The rule remains. So I remove these two letters, AR, and I say, yo estudio, tú estudias, usted estudia, él estudia, ella estudia, nosotros estudiamos, or nosotras estudiamos, ustedes estudian, ellos estudian, ellas estudian. Okay? And the same with another example, trabajar. I say, yo trabajo, tú trabajas, usted trabaja, él trabaja, ella trabaja, nosotros trabajamos, or nosotras trabajamos, ustedes trabajan, ellos trabajan, or ellas trabajan. Okay? Remember that I say the examples using the personal pronoun, but if I want, I can omit the personal pronoun. It is not necessary that I say the personal pronoun in Spanish unless I want to be very specific about what I am saying. Okay? Okay, guys, let's move on. Now, let's jump to the second group of the infinitives in Spanish. Verbos regulares en el tiempo presente, regular verbs in the present tense. And here we have the group that end, okay, the group of verbs that end in the letters ER, okay? And we have, as an example, we have the word comer, to eat, all right? Comer. Okay, notice that the two last letters of this infinitive, of this verb, is ER, right? Okay, guys, the same. It happens something similar, right? Here I have the table, and the only thing I have to do is remove these two letters, ER, okay? And I maintain the same verb, right? But the only thing I have to do is replace that ending for a new ending, right? So, for example, yo como, okay? Notice that I remove ER, and instead of ER with the personal pronoun yo, the only thing you have to do is replace it by the letter O, right? So you say yo como, all right? Tú comes, okay? The same, I remove the two last letters, ER, and instead of ER, with in the case of tú, the only thing I have to do is replace it by the letters ES, okay? So I say tú comes, all right? Usted come, él come, ella come, right? Remember that in the case of usted, él, and ella, they share the same conjugation in Spanish. We have said this in previous lessons. We also have nosotros comemos, ustedes comen, ellos comen, ellas comen. All right, notice that in every example, the only thing I have to do is remove the ending ER at the end, and I replace this ending by, depending on the personal pronoun, I write the ending O, ES, E, EMOS, or EN. All right, guys? And here we have other examples. For example, the verb aprender, okay, that is translated in Spanish as to learn, right? So I say, yo aprendo, tú aprendes, usted aprende, él aprende, ella aprende, nosotros aprendemos, or nosotras aprendemos, ustedes aprenden, ellos aprenden, ellas aprenden. Okay, the same. Again, the only thing I have to do is remove ER at the end of the verb, and I replace this ending by one of these new endings for every personal pronoun, right? I also have, as an example, the verb comprender, that is like to comprehend or to understand, okay? So I say, yo comprendo, tú comprendes, usted comprende, él comprende, ella comprende, nosotros comprendemos or nosotras comprendemos, ustedes comprenden, ellos comprenden, ellas comprenden. Okay, and the same with this other example, correr, that is translated as to run, correr. I say, yo corro, tú corres, usted corre, él corre, ella corre, nosotros corremos o nosotras corremos, ustedes corren, ellos corren, or ellas corren. Okay? I can say, for example, yo corro todas las mañanas. Or I can say, corro todas las mañanas. Because remember, I don't have to write and I don't have to say the personal pronoun. Okay? I say it if I want to be very specific. And now, guys, let's go to the third and last group. That is the group with the verbs that end with the ending IR. Okay? As an example, we have the verb vivir. Okay? That is translated in English as to live. Right? Vivir. Right? And here we have something similar. We have the table, and the only thing we have to do is to replace the ending IR at the end of the verb, and I replace it by a new ending, okay, depending on the personal pronoun, the subject that I am talking about, right? So I say, for example, yo vivo, tú vives, usted vive, él vive, ella vive, nosotros vivimos o nosotras vivimos, ustedes viven, ellos viven, or ellas viven. Okay? Notice that. Again, the only thing I have to do is replace the ending IR, and I replace it with one of these endings. Okay? And we have other examples. For example, the word discutir, to argue. Okay, discutir. And I say, for example, yo discuto, tú discutes, usted discute, él discute, ella discute, nosotros discutimos or nosotras discutimos, ustedes discuten, ellos discuten, or ellas discuten. The same with the word permitir, to allow. Okay, to allow, permitir. So I say, yo permito, tú permites, usted permite, él permite, ella permite, nosotros permitimos o nosotras permitimos, ustedes permiten, ellos permiten, or ellas permiten. And the same with the last example that I bring to you, and is the example abrir, that is like to open in English. And I say, yo abro, tú abres, usted abre, él abre, ella abre, nosotros abrimos, or nosotras abrimos, ustedes abren, ellos abren, ellas abren. Okay, guys? And here we have the three groups, okay? I have the group that end in the ending AR, the group that end in the ending ER, and the last one ending in the letters IR, okay? And why do I put these three conjugations next to each other? And it's simple, because if you notice, it's not so easy to remember, because with the personal pronoun yo, if I am talking about myself, I keep the same, all right? I keep the same. I remove the two last letters in the case of AR, ER, or IR, and the only thing I have to do is write O, okay? O for the three groups, okay? In the case of tú, okay? In the first one, I replace it by the letter AS. But in the second group and in the third group, I write the same ending, okay? ES. All right, guys? Also for usted, ella, and él, okay? It happens the same. For the ending AR, for the infinitive AR, I replace it by the letter A. But for the other two groups, I replace them both with the letter E, okay? In this case, with nosotros or nosotras, it's a little more difficult because we have to remember three different endings, okay? So we have AMOS, EMOS, and finally IMOS, okay? This is a little more difficult. But here, it happens the same. For ustedes, okay, ustedes, or ellos, or ellas, okay, I replace the ending AR for the ending AN, okay? And in the case of the other two groups, ustedes, ellos, and ellas, I replace the endings the ending ER and the ending IR for the letters EN. So it's a little easier, right? It's not so difficult like it seems at first. It's not so difficult to remember. Guys, any questions you have, please let me know in the comments. Amigo o amiga que me estás viendo y escuchando, déjame en los comentarios algunas oraciones en las cuales uses el tiempo presente. Utiliza algunos verbos que terminen en AR, otros que terminen en y otros que terminen en IR. Muchas gracias. Leave me in the comments some sentences in which you use the present tense. Also, use verbs with the ending AR, others with the ending ER, and others with the ending IR. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Amigos, es todo por hoy. Como siempre, quiero agradecerte por haber visto el video hasta el final. Si te gustó, regálame un me gusta, suscríbete si aún no lo has hecho y no te olvides de darle a la campanita. If you liked the video, please subscribe, give me a like, and don't forget to hit the bell button. Remember, this channel is new, and with your help, we can make it grow together. Muchas gracias. Nos vemos en la clase número 17. Adiós.